While people are introducing themselves in the chat, we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Christy Omalanik. I go by she, her pronouns. I am the Network Engagement Manager here at the Children in Nature Network. I'm so glad you're all here. Welcome to our Babies, Toddlers, and Preschoolers in Nature event, which is part of our Families Together in Nature series. The Families Together in Nature series initiative provides both inspiration and practical tips for getting more outdoor activities onto the family calendar and more of nature's benefits into the lives of children. We are going to start with a land acknowledgement. I am joining you today from the land of the Munsee Lenape people in central New Jersey on the East Coast. We invite you to share the native land you are on in the chat. If you're not familiar with the history of your location, you can learn about Indigenous territories and lands with the native land map. We'll post that link in the chat. And on this slide, you'll see some ways that we can all support Indigenous peoples every day. These tips were adapted from Amplifier Art, and you can learn about whose Indigenous homelands you're on and normalize land acknowledgements, educate yourself, amplify Indigenous social media accounts, and support Indigenous causes and businesses. Before we get started, I'm going to go over some event logistics. Closed captioning has been enabled. Please use the Zoom Q&A function to ask our panelists questions. We will address questions around 1:43 p.m. CST, but if a question comes into your mind, you can just pop it into the Q&A at any time, just so it's there for later. And as you already know, the chat is enabled for all attendees. Feel free to comment and connect during the event. Approximately 2 weeks from now, we will email all event registrants a recording of the event, as well as the resources that will be shared by our panelists and any resources shared by attendees during the event. These resources will also be added to our website as well. It is now my pleasure to welcome and introduce our speakers. We have Alexis Burroughs. Alexis has a background in early childhood education and has been teaching children yoga for more than 10 years. She has a young children's yoga and movement method teacher training program in the works. At her studio, Funky Monkey Yoga, she also teaches several adult classes, including iRest Yoga Nidra, which is a tool that may be helpful in healing from PTSD, childhood trauma, anxiety, depression, insomnia, and stress. When she is not in her studio, Alexis can be found outside. She is an Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, ANFT, certified guide who offers outdoor guiding and forest therapy guided walks to families with young children and preschool classes. Thank you for joining us today, Alexis.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm located in Bothell, Washington, which is part of the Snohomish sovereign nation. And yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you to everyone.
Great. We also have Jessica Carrillo Alatorre. Jessica is the Executive Director of OutGrown, the organization formerly known as Hike a Baby. OutGrown is a national community-led nonprofit that Jessica has helped build from the ground up over the last decade. The goal of the organization is helping families of all kinds spend more time outside together. Jessica is committed to building a future where the outdoors is a welcoming, accessible space for all families to enjoy, regardless of their identity or ability. It is her belief that by building a more welcoming and inclusive vision of the outdoors, we can work towards a world where more people have the opportunity to fall in love with nature from birth and grow into people who work to protect the natural wonders of this planet that we are all a part of. It's so nice to see you today, Jessica.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm checking in from Beaverton, Oregon, which is also a big confluence area of a lot of different tribes. So we're excited to have that representation here too.
Great, thanks. And last but not least, we have Gabriel Pickus joining us. Gabe is a visionary nonprofit leader, healing-centered educator, intercultural bridge builder, and InDiGO's founder and director. He has strived toward social and educational justice with over 100 organizations and thousands of young people across Baltimore City, Maryland since 2009. As a trained community organizer and award-winning education reformer, he has served in cross-sector initiatives for holistic education, youth employment, police accountability, reducing youth incarceration, clean water, healthy parks, and clean air. While directly serving Baltimore City's youth and teachers in the classroom and out of school time, he has advocated for systemic changes to the educational system that increase access to holistic and outdoor education through research, professional development, and policy advocacy. Thank you for joining us today, Gabe.
Hey everyone, happy Friday. Great to be here.
Great. Thanks to all of our panelists for joining us today. We're going to start off with an activity led by Alexis.
Thank you, Christy. So this is just a short grounding meditation, and it is a choice. You don't need to join in with it. You can join in part of it. If you are driving and listening to this, please continue driving and listen to the recording later. Let's see, if you are sitting or standing, that's completely fine. There's no right or wrong way to do this practice. So I'll just invite you to maybe close your eyes or just do a soft gaze to the ground. And just start to feel any sensation and awareness in the crown of the head. You feel in the crown of the head as
Alexis, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but your audio is a little bit choppy.
And then you might bring some sensation onto the shoulders. Just feeling shoulders relax. You might. Oh, nope. Okay, let's get my video off. Okay, is that better?
Much better. Thanks, Alexis.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay. And then slowly you might feel some sensation through the arms. Might be bringing the arms down to the side of your body. You might feel the back, feeling the back nice and long. And as you lengthen the back, you might even feel that the heart is lifting. Your belly might be soft and rising and falling with the breath. If you're sitting, you might feel your sit bones on the surface that you're sitting upon. Or if you're standing, you might feel how the pelvis connects the torso and the legs. You might feel some sensation as it runs down the legs, through the knees, to the ankles, the tops of the feet, the toes, and the soles of the feet. You might decide to stay here, just feeling your feet on the ground. Or you might be curious as to what it would feel like to be rooted like a tree. It's roots traveling into the ground. You might even check in with your breath. And maybe sensations or no sensations at all. You might decide to stay here, just feeling your feet grounded and rooting. Or maybe you start to bring an awakening to the body. Might be by gently moving your arms and legs, or whichever part of your body you'd like to move, to bring you back to your awareness of either sitting or standing. And you might even take a few breaths in and out before you open your eyes if they're closed. Or maybe you just open your eyes. You can always go back to this feeling of grounded anytime throughout the day or your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Alexis, for that grounding exercise. We apologize that you weren't able to see Alexis, but I had my eyes closed anyway, so I couldn't see her. So we're going to start our conversation today with Jessica, who is going to talk about the why and how of babies and nature. Jessica, why take your brand new baby, little itsy bitsy new baby skin, or your toddler who puts everything in their mouth out in nature, and how do you do it? Can you tell us?
Yeah. So I think the why, there's lots of reasons why, right? We see lots of mental and physical benefits of spending time outside, and that does start at birth. To your point, Christy, I think, yeah, they put things in their mouth, but just spending time outside, and even if they do get a hold of a pine cone or something, you're building their immune system and helping them get a lot of that fresh air and that connection to nature, which is so important for all of us. One of my favorite reasons was because they nap better when you spend time outside with them. And I think it helps with the parent and child bonding piece. We see all this opportunity to just connect and relax together outside. Becoming a new parent is a stressful and sometimes scary thing. And just having somewhere that you can be peaceful with your little one is really important for both of you. I think we also see parents feel more empowered when they start trying to go outside. We get a lot of information from our doctors and people around us about all these things we need to protect our little ones from. And as new parents, that instinct is really high. We don't want them to get hurt. So just starting to experiment and explore, even just stepping outside your front door can really start to help you feel like you can do these things with your little one and what that might look like for the two of you. I think another thing to be aware of is that infants in the first 3 years of their life are developing over 1 million neuronal connections in their brain per second. And then the parent or the caregiver, their brain is also rewiring at that time. So it's just this really nice opportunity for everyone to build these habits and these relationships in outdoor spaces to be more connected, to have some of that mindfulness that we just kind of experienced, and have these opportunities for learning too. I know like when I took my little ones outside, I always appreciated the fact that like I know that as a parent, I'm supposed to be talking to them and introducing them to all these things and reading to them. And sometimes that feels really overwhelming. So just going for a walk and naming what we saw and touching a tree and talking about how it felt was a really easy way for me to feel like I'm still introducing them to those language and sensory experiences that they need to be having without it feeling like this thing that I had to come up with and, make this exercise possible. So I think there's just a lot of easy and friendly and accessible ways that we can improve all of our health outcomes when we take our little ones outside. In terms of the how you do it, I think, there is some preparing that you want to do, right? You want to make sure that you are prepared for the elements and that you know kind of what the weather's going to be like, and maybe think about the layering and the different things you might need. So if it's cold weather, thinking about, do they have an outer waterproof rain layer? Do you have one? Or can you just grab an umbrella and start with that? If it's sunny and hot outside, what are you using to protect their skin from the sun? Things like a muslin blanket before they're old enough to use sunscreen can be really helpful because it's lightweight, but it still blocks the sun. And I think we have tools that are available on our website that I think someone can drop the link in for you that talk about like all of these basics and just help you feel more confident in being prepared. We also offer community spaces, so you can join the community and you can ask questions, because that's a lot of times as a new parent trying to figure these things out and hear from other people is a really helpful thing. And I think another huge piece for me is resetting expectations, right? Like a lot of us might feel familiar with getting outside, some of us might not. But you might put in your brain that you need to go a certain distance or achieve a certain length of like hike or level of challenge. And with little ones, you can't always plan for them to have a good time doing that. And so thinking about where can you go that have like loops or smaller segments that you can like easily turn back if things aren't going well that day. Thinking about places where you feel comfortable because they have like a good bathroom or good parking. We offer a family trail guide resource that's free on our website that also shares different trails and park spaces that other parents have been to and recommend for getting outside with children under 5. And I think you need to be okay as a parent or as the person leading a group of small children with the idea that maybe you're only going to go a couple feet into the parking lot. Like I remember when my little ones were small and that was all they wanted to do was like get out of the car and go play in the rocks in the gravel that was like 2 feet from the car door. And so just kind of having that open mindset to want to explore with them and get on their level, I think is so important at this age. And again, that's what really helps with the bonding with you and your child at that age. That they know that you're there to engage and play with them and center them. And I think it opens your eyes as an adult too, when you take a look at these things and understand like that there's so many things to see just in one little, small log, that there's all these little plants growing and there's bugs crawling, and that can be an hour of entertainment. And that's totally okay. And then there's other days where we're totally bored with that and all we want to do is run ahead on the trail. So they're always going to be a different speed and a different thing that they want to do, and just being open and continuing to try and experiment, I think, is really important and helpful.
As my preteen would say, that's so real, so real. Yeah, like just having flashbacks of myself screaming, like, we're going for a walk, we're not here to play in the parking lot, and just kind of reframing those expectations and like someone put in the chat, just, letting the child take the lead, what they're interested in doing that day. It's I was also thinking about how it's kind of like building any habit, whether it's like meditation or exercise. It's like just start off with baby steps, right? Like 5 minutes. Today we're just gonna do it for 5 minutes. And then maybe tomorrow or 2 days, because we need to recover tomorrow, we'll try it for like 7 minutes. And building up to that. So many great tips, and Jamie put a bunch of the resources in the chat, including your family trail guide, your get outside with baby guide, what to wear and where to go. And although it is wrapping up, did you want to take a second to share about your winter walk with walks or any upcoming events OutGrown has coming up?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So to your point about just trying to start with a small step, we, for the month of February, encourage families to participate in our Winter Walk with Walks challenge. And that's just about getting outside for 10 minutes every day during what is typically a pretty kind of dreary winter month for a lot of us. And with the idea that if you tell yourself you're just going outside for 10 minutes, it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And often we end up spending more time outside once we do that. So we have quarterly seasonal challenges that come up and we share with our newsletter and on our website. So you can always sign up for that information and follow along. The next one will be in April. We'll be doing a spring sensory challenge with different engagements for our 5 senses throughout the month. So yeah, we look forward to having participation.
Great. And for any of our participants who are able to join us in Madison, Wisconsin this May, Jessica will be presenting some sessions with her OutGrown family as well. So looking forward to hearing those too. Thanks, Jessica. We'll hear from you a little later as questions come up. We're going to talk to Gabe next. Gabe, you spend a lot of time with preschoolers and teachers in Baltimore, which is an inner city. Can you share with us how you approach getting these younger children into nature, and maybe some tips or philosophies that you share with the educators that you work with?
Sure, thanks. Blessings. I want to start by just opening up a little bit with something that I'm working on. So, I don't have kids of my own yet, and I'm 36 years old. So that's definitely something that I want, but I want the conditions to be right. And because I've worked with so many children, and I've seen, the impact of all the parents and all the teachers that are dealing with them and nurturing them for so many years. And one of the conditions that I hope we can all try to remedy in this country together is public education. Now, that's an important piece, but also with private land, churches, coupled with the community gardens and the school playgrounds, the school gardens, and then also increasing access to outdoor field trips outside the city. So what I'm interested in creating is a school system in a world that I would want to send my kids to. So the whole question of whether or not we are going to make it as a species, and whether or not we believe in our future, in our children's future, I think is a real existential issue for people. That's kind of a big elephant in the room. So what I'm interested in today is giving just some insight on parents and teachers and educators, like leveraging our love for children to improve the health, education, environment, and economy simultaneously. And that might feel a bit ephemeral, but parents from 0 to 5 and teachers from, young early childhood educators have so much power, not only over, as my co-leads here were so eloquently explaining, the effects on the nervous system, the effects on everything in a child's development, to give them access to the environments that literally their DNA has been built for. And only in the last, several generations have we stopped going outside, have we stopped this, inherent connection with the air, the trees, and need to interact with our environment in order to survive. So when we look to the future, I think that it's so important and deep to really look at our children and see them not just as what we have to deal with right now, but what they will have to deal with in the future. So ultimately, this comes down to us transforming our relationship with our own sense of control over the kids, our own sense of being able even to teach them. So I want to take you through my website and just open up the conversation. So can some folks put in the chat just some things that children naturally love to do? Just what are they just naturally doing all the time? Smashing ice, yeah, there we go. Running, play pretend, peekaboo, spin, roll around, dig, climb, explore, right, finding sticks, so everybody can kind of follow along, and we're getting the we're getting the gist, right? And so yes, somebody said it, I was just about to say that. So Einstein said that play is the highest form of research, right? And so right now our work is actually pulling together community participatory science from 0 to age 24 all the way through, and we're connecting this early childhood with what is that kid going to be like in 24 years? How are they going to become not just what planet are we leaving our children, but what children are we leaving our planet? So the influence that, as those millions of neurodevelopmental connections form in their early childhood, right? The influence that you have as the primary caregiver or teacher in those first formative years, I can tell you, as somebody focused on pre-K through 5th grade right now, it makes such a huge difference in their academic performance, in their health, all of that through elementary school and beyond. So thank you for everyone who I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. So what I want to invite people to do is claim their power. And that's, I'll share my screen. So this is our website, and we're discovering nature as our greatest teacher and healer. And so the first thing that I like to talk about, and I share this on my kind of bio here, but I was riding to daycare when I was 3 years old, 4 years old, maybe, almost 4. And I was listening to Rafi, that song, Big Beautiful Planet in the Sky. So I asked my mom, I say, hey mom, where's the big beautiful planet in the sky? And she like paused and had like a existential moment, because she explained that we're in the sky and we're on this big beautiful planet. And I feel like very passionate about that's the moment that my education began. And so when I started to understand that not only are we in the sky, but what are we made of? Who am I? Where am I? What am I? All of these questions that I like Dr. Catherine Lecoulier's wonder approach, for just a clear articulation of the mindset, right? We can't teach anyone anything. really. We can lead them to the threshold of their own mind, as Khalil Gibran said, but we're creating the environments and then facilitating the experiences that allow children to access their health for themselves, access their innate desire to learn for themselves. So the place where learning lives is not anywhere except inside the children. And I think that that mindset is so important, not only as we raise kids ourselves, but as we join with our kids to advocate for the future that we want them to inherit, both environmentally and also what, we want the environment to inherit from our children. So I saw a question that's so relevant to exactly what we're working on in Baltimore, because I just want to shift over to the Outdoor Bill of Rights. So not only is it essential to our health, but what we're working towards and what I would love everyone's help in claiming your own inner power to be an advocate outside your door, in your street, outside in your neighborhood, in your school, around your school, with the local churches, because we're bringing together public and private sector to not just transform education, but also the environment. So how can we really separate education from the environment? If children have basements that are flooding and unhealthy air in their homes, right, we need money to renovate that. We need them to have passion to profession pipelines that they can walk, pathways that they can walk forward into being paid to be environmental stewards, and also to shine their own unique light and expressive, authentic self-expression. So these are the Baltimore Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights, and we're one of many cities that are in the process of creating these Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights. But then, of course, the question is, how do we make them a reality for our kids, especially in city-bound, where places where many of the parks are toxic, or there's lead in the soil, or there's actual genuine concerns. Whereas in Finland, in a pre-K garden, right, kids actually, their immune systems improve when they dig in the dirt. But when you just allow kids in Baltimore City to dig in the dirt, they get lead poisoning, or it might even be in their home. So there's genuine concerns. We have to really cultivate the environments where the health and the education can occur. And then that has implications for the economy as we bring in high schoolers to get service learning hours, and teachers from colleges to do their teacher training. And then we get the teachers and the outdoor centers and the churches and the other parochial institutions and cultural institutions to all invest in the future with environment and education simultaneously. So in Maryland, we recently enacted universal outdoor pre-K. So at this point, from 0 to 5, really, you vote with your feet as parents every year that you enroll your child either in a public school or in a private school, in a charter school or in an outdoor preschool. And what we envision is, through the lens of community participatory science and earth science, having a whole pipeline all the way from 0 to 24, where I call it the passion to profession pathway, where people can really pursue their innate identity, relationships, values, gifts, voice, vision, and leadership, and have these ways to express all of these different integrative facets of the things we're supposed to learn and what makes us a productive member of a democracy. So we're really planting the seeds here, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share with you all today. As you can see, I just want to give you some questions before we shift. This is what makes our work child-centered. And I think that if we can get one thing out of today, it's to really be able to see things through the lens of the child and know that when it comes to getting their shoes on to go outside, for example, the most practical thing, we can make it a game. We can make it we can create it in a way that teaches them how to get out of the house in collaboration with you, as opposed to making it a battle, right? So all of these things are surrounding intrinsic motivation and activating the innate desire to learn. So I'd be happy to just be a resource for folks if you want to reach out in how to leverage 0 to 5 so that we see all these outcomes in pre-K through 5th grade. And how you can really, through reading, outdoors, through some other questions that I'd like to add, anything that you find outdoors, you can ask its form, its function, its pattern, its connection. And then I think another facet of kind of deconstructing the false dichotomy between nature out there and nature in us is, we're made of water, we're made of star stuff, and infusing those kind of messages into every day that we interact with a child. Turn on the faucet. Hey, where'd that water come from? Hey, what's that? You turn over that log, or hey, is that safe? Right? What do you think is going to happen if that happens? And consistently leading them to the threshold of their own mind and activating that spark. That way you don't have to work so hard.
Thanks, Gabe, for sharing your philosophy with us and having us look at the big picture. Definitely all connected. I'll have to get those wonder questions from you so that we can also share those out with the event resources. Hopefully we have some time to hear from you a little bit later on with the Q&A. There's a ton of feedback for you in the chat too, if you get a chance to read that. Now we're just going to shift to Alexis. We want to make sure we leave her some time. Alexis incorporates movement and sensory experiences when she is working with young children in nature, which I think is so cool because children don't like sitting still. At least mine don't. Can you share a little bit about your work and any tips that you have for parents or caregivers who are looking to introduce nature to the children in their care?
Absolutely. Do you want me to turn my video off in case my internet connection starts losing again?
It is cutting a little bit in and out. So maybe you should turn your video off.
Okay. Let me turn my video off. Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gabe and Jessica. Let's see, I just want to start off with that I was lucky as a kid. I'm originally from the UK, and I grew up 5-minute walk away from a 1,000-year-old ancient woodland. And then in the opposite direction, 1.25 miles away, was the ruins of a Norman castle. So I had tons and tons of places to play. Lots of pretend roles and adventures, which really, I guess, helped build my relationship with nature. And in forest therapy, we actually call it the more than human world, because nature is so vast. We are nature. We are connected with nature. We are nature. But sadly, we have, as Gabe said, we've kind of lost this relationship with it. And I like to help providers and early childhood educators come up with ways that they can actually help to build that relationship back with kiddos. And a lot of it is to do with really finding out what the children like. One of the things that I really like to start off with is looking at the person's where their watershed is. This is a great way to start with introducing children to the location of where they live, because we hear so much about other things in parts of the world, and we can't do a lot about that. It's also causing a lot of eco-anxiety amongst even elementary kids all the way up through middle school and teenagers. And so a watershed is a great way to really start for teachers and providers. And just Googling where your local watershed is. And a watershed, if you're unsure about it, is really a catchment area from melted snow and rain. And then it runs out into various tributaries. And these can be creeks, then they go into rivers, streams, and then they flow eventually out into lakes. And where I am in Washington State, it flows out into the Salish Sea. And so it's a great way for children to connect with what is around them. With studying a watershed, you get to look at all the different animals that live in the area, and just where that kind of like connects with the location of where you live. And it's a great start to actually put a forest bathing adventure together. And I put a handout together which you guys will actually get. But some of the things that you can do for a nature forest therapy guide is to provide resources for parents that can be part of the places of nature. In fact, introducing the parents to where the watershed is, they can go and access it themselves. There's great, wonderful ways that they can explore. The other things as well, that contacting your local university and even agricultural college to find out the different types of plants that might be growing in the area. And then another way to also introduce nature into the classroom is bringing nature in, but also outside, especially if you're living in a urban dense area. And obviously, if you're a licensed provider, you need to check with licensing to make sure that, some of the plants that you would want, or even if you can have plants in there, which I really hope that you can, because that'd be really sad. So bringing in some dwarf miniature trees and some plants into the classroom can be a great way to introduce the kiddos to the different types of plants. And then you can also bring in different types of plants into the outdoor area. And a great way to get kiddos involved in this is to possibly actually have them plant the flowers, the plants, the miniature trees into pots or any area of where you can have that. Is a really great way for the kiddos to get involved with the nature. The other things that you can do is incorporate some herbs into your indoor classroom or even outdoor classroom. Check in with a local herbalist just to make sure which herbs are okay for children. And they can also explore their senses, and senses are a really big part of bringing kiddos into nature. The taste, the smells, the looks of the plant, even hearing. When the wind blows, does the leaves on the plant make a noise? And obviously the touch as well. The other area that I did want to touch on was, because I have a background in trauma-informed yoga, one of the things that nature and animal and human world has a positive effect on is our autonomic nervous system. And when children are not exposed to green spaces, they may live in urban areas, they don't have access to the green spaces. Some of the detrimental effects that can happen is that resilience and self-empowerment can be affected. That also has an impact upon a young children's developing neuroception, interoception, and proprioception. Now, neuroception was actually coined by Dr. Stephen Porges, and it describes how our neurocircuits distinguish whether a stimuli is safe or dangerous. I know that from when I was a preschool teacher, and we talk about being out in amongst the trees, there were kiddos that would be scared of being out in nature because there were strange creatures in there that might attack them. And so when children don't have that accessibility, it can cause our nervous system to actually be in that fight or flight, that sympathetic nervous system all the time. And as we know as adults, and there's been plenty of news out there, that when our nervous systems are in a continuous state of stress and anxiety, it has a very detrimental effect, and it can have a long-term effect on that. So if you have a child who is not exposed to nature, outdoor spaces, though that effect is the same upon their nervous system. And then if you look about that child will grow up to be a parent, then those feelings are then passed on to the children. So it's a really reciprocal effect going from one generation to the other. And then interoception. So interoception is really interesting. Some people call it our sixth sense. And it's when that we can actually feel what is going on inside us, and it's also connected to the physical world as well. So we feel hunger, our respiratory rate, it also our emotions. And when we don't have exposure to nature, it also has that effect upon the interoception because it is part of our autonomic nervous system. And then the other thing that is the proprioception as well. And proprioception is our spatial awareness. how we walk, movement. And they've, if you look at children that live in dense urban environments, they're running around on concrete. They may be going up and down stairs. There's obviously some playgrounds and that kids can play in, but they don't have the benefit of running along, a wooded path of where they're developing that fine and gross motor skills of balance and just feeling the different textures and gradation on the paths and in nature, and climbing trees, and jumping over logs. It really is a great benefit to the children's development. And so with those three things in mind, it's really bringing that in to nature and the modern human world, and how we can help the children develop that and bring in on our parasympathetic nervous system as well, because that's our rest and digest. And nature helps with that. Dense urban environments kind of are more in the sympathetic nervous system. And also as well, movement and conscious breathing also helps to develop our resilience, which has been really big throughout COVID, and we're starting to see the ramifications of that. So just going over a few things about benefits of nature with young children. Their cooperative play. It helps to encourage play and exploration. It's also covers, it's such a multi-dimensional learning environment that really covers all the domains, and just the different learning from math, science, hypothesizing, predicting, language. And so just a quick overview of how you can bring this in as far as a forest bathing adventure could go, in that starting off with the watershed, reading books. The teacher's going to look at different places that they can do the forest bathing. And, will you need transportation, the time frame needed? For this age group, I find that no more than about 30 minutes in the actual forest bathing. And for this age group as well, I just use the senses. It's a great way for the children to really start to develop their awareness of what is around them. And the other thing that I put in my handout is magnifying glass. I love it when the children can actually really get a close look at what is going on, because a lot of times with our natural eyesight, we can't see the depth, but when you have a magnifying glass there, it just really opens it up to just this whole magical world. And before I finish, just piggybacking on what Gabe said, it's really our responsibility to help the children discover nature. We're at this critical point. We know what's going on. And it is those children that we're teaching now, that are really going to feel the brunt of all of this. And so really helping them to discover the magic and the wonder and the awe that's out there in the modern human world. It also has a reciprocal effect upon us as adults, because all of a sudden we're seeing this. And then when we start to see these things through the eyes of a child, they're also teaching us as well about what is magical. And a lot of times we've kind of forgotten or lost that magic. from when we was a child. So that's really important for us to be part of leaders for our children.
Thanks so much,
And
Alexis. Thank you so
you're
much
welcome.
for guiding us through that. We did put your PDF handout in the chat. Thanks to Jamie for posting that. And I hate to ask you to stop talking, but we do want to leave a few minutes for Q&A because we do have some questions in the chat. So let's see here. I think this is a good practical tip. I'm going to throw this one to you, Jessica. Caitlin asks, are there any tips or recommendations for helping toddlers with transitioning from the outdoors when they're coming back inside?
Yeah, I think with toddlers, especially routine and just repetition, reminding them like what you're doing, right? So before you're going to go inside, 5-minute warning, we're going to go inside, 1-minute warning, choose one more thing you want to do. And then when we go inside, what do we need to do? Do we need to take off our jacket or our shoes or, just kind of going through those steps and narrating things, I think is helpful. And then what does that routine look like? Like, do we always hang up our jacket? Do we take the rocks out of our pockets? Those little things that you want to work with and kind of keep them learning how to transition between the places you're going.
Great. Gabe, maybe you can answer this one. Noelle asks about challenges and strategies in urban settings. She works with families in inner city environments. Access is often limited and safety is a concern. Can you briefly tell us what folks are doing to accommodate these barriers?
Yeah, this is the question because obviously, we know that the benefits of all of this is really great for families that have access, right? And for schools that this is embedded within their pedagogy. But what about the cities where a lot of people live? So this is going to be a long getting the yes before the and kind of battle. And this is what I meant by voting with your feet, especially as parents or educators, we can really step up to hold institutions and collaborate with institutions, hold them accountable, but also work with them to change these realities and make sure that kids are not only that we have an outdoor Bill of Rights established, but that we're somehow enforcing it. So with the power of the schools, with the power of the churches, and then the PTO, I mean, there's nothing scarier than a parent demanding what's best for their children to an institution that is somehow violating that, right? So whether it's a city agency like the Department of Public Works that you can get on your side for stopping dumping in your, local park area, and then on the other side, like gathering community support to steward that area, setting up ways to put it into some sort of land trust and protect it, and then be able to sue anybody who messes with it, is some of the measures that need to happen if we're ever going to be able to enforce these rights as real for children. So I'm happy to continue that conversation. And hopefully we can bring what we're doing in Baltimore to your city. Feel free to reach out. No promises it can happen. Like, it's not going to be a wave of a magic wand. It's going to be, thousands of people working together, but we should talk more.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Gabe. And as part of Children in Nature Network's strategic plan, we are working to create equitable access to nature everywhere children learn, live, and play. And we have started an initiative this year, Nature Everywhere in 100 Communities by 2025, and are working with communities to help them achieve their Nature Everywhere goals. So I'll put a link in the chat to that. And Gabe and his colleagues in Baltimore are part of that program. So sadly, I think we have come to the end of our event. So I'm sorry that you didn't get a question, Alexis. But we are trying to answer all the questions in the chat. If we don't do them right now, we'll send you some answers via email or in the resources that we send out after the event. Gabe, Jessica, and Alexis, I want to thank you all for joining us today and sharing your time and your talent and your experiences. This has been so much food for thought, and the chat has been so active. I love it. And just a reminder to everyone that a recording of this event will be sent to all registered members in about 2 weeks. It'll also be available on our website at that time. And if you want to save the date, our next Families Together and Nature event is going to be on April 26th at 1 p.m. CST. And the topic is going to be kids and gardening. So looking forward to that conversation as well. So I hope everyone has a great day, and thanks so much for joining us.